Canada faces an almost unprecedented national unity and economic crisis because of the flood of energy capital and the hundreds of thousands of people who have lost their jobs in the energy sector under these Liberals because of their anti-energy, anti-business legislation, policy, and regulations. It is stunning that in the throne speech there was only one line about the natural resources sector and nothing whatsoever concrete about what the Liberals will actually do to fix the crisis that they've caused in the energy sector. Given that on the election night, the Prime Minister spoke his, now we know, empty words about hearing the message loud and clear from Albertans and from people in Saskatchewan, but I would also suggest from Canadians everywhere who are concerned about their livelihoods and their jobs, which are dependent on the energy sector in every corner of our country. Today, their throne speech shows that those words were indeed empty. And I think the question should be asked whether or not there has been a backroom agreement between the Liberals and the Bloc to prop up the Liberal government and their throne speech contingent on not mentioning the energy sector. Given that the energy sector is the #1 private sector investor in the Canadian economy and Canada's #1 export, and predictions from the private sector and analysts everywhere say that there will be no new energy investment in Canada after 2019 as a direct result of the policy and legislative framework of these Liberals, this throne speech and the potential of a deal between the Liberals and the Bloc should concern every single, I would say, reporter and also citizen in every corner of the country. And now I'd just like to, I'd like to just welcome, I said the question should be asked. And I would just like to welcome my colleague, you guys should ask. And now I would just like to welcome my colleague Gérard Deltel to share a few comments.
Merci beaucoup, Shannon. Gérard Deltel, député de Louis-Saint-Laurent. Alors, écoutez, dès la première occasion, le Bloc québécois a décidé de plier les genoux devant le gouvernement libéral centralisateur et les Québécois doivent être surpris, pour ne pas dire déçus, de la réaction de M. Blanchette. M. Blanchette a dit qu'il allait être le porte-voix des intérêts des Québécois à la Chambre des communes. Or, les 7 demandes du gouvernement du Québec ne sont pas incluses d'aucune façon dans le discours du trône. Alors, comment se faire M. Blanchette n'a de cesse de se faire le défenseur des intérêts du Québec. Or, les intérêts du Québec ne sont pas du tout contenus dans le discours inaugural. Et au contraire, voilà que M. Blanchette soutient le gouvernement Trudeau en disant qu'il n'est pas question du pétrole dans son discours du trône. Dois-je rappeler à M. Blanchette qu'aujourd'hui même, au Québec, les Québécois achètent pour 26 millions de litres de pétrole des Américains. Si M. Blanchette va continuer à envoyer des centaines de millions de dollars à Donald Trump et les Américains, c'est son choix. Mais nous, on pense qu'on serait beaucoup mieux servi avec le pétrole canadien. Et donc, c'est pour ça qu'on pose la question, est-ce qu'il y a une entente entre le Bloc québécois et le gouvernement libéral à l'effet que nous avons votre appui du moment que vous ne parlez pas du pétrole canadien? Et je vous rappelle qu'au Québec, nous avons du pétrole qui vient de l'étranger. Et tant et aussi longtemps qu'on achètera du pétrole de l'étranger, eh bien, nous, on estime qu'on devrait faire affaire avec les Canadiens. Quelle accusation on lance?
D'avoir un deal entre le Bloc
pose la question. On pose la question.
Mais qu'est-ce qui vous mène à poser la question?
Bien, c'est parce que ce que l'on voit dans la déclaration de M. Blanchette, c'est ce qu'il vous a dit. Il vous a dit que parce qu'il n'y a pas de pétrole, bien, on va voter pour. Alors, notre préoccupation est la suivante. Alors,
everybody put their request to the Prime Minister's office, and the Prime Minister's office put together a throne speech that would get passed in the House. So I don't understand what's nefarious here.
Okay, maybe because I explained that in French, I will explain that in English. Maybe if they have some deal with the government about what the Quebec government asked in the throne speech. Because the Quebec government asked 7 points in the throne speech, and none of those 7 points are inside the throne speech. So if they want to have a deal, they should have done that on behalf of the Quebec government, because they say they will be the voice of the Quebec government. They said, the Bloc Québécois said during the campaign and just after the election, they said, we will be the voice of the National Assembly here in the House of Commons. Well, the Quebec government tabled 7 points for this throne of speech, and none of them are inside the throne of speech.
What is wrong with negotiating with opposition parties, given that the government...
Yeah, I think this is a totally fair question.
So the government needs to get support from someone in order to continue on in government. So I don't understand what's wrong with having meetings with everybody and putting something together.
This is what's wrong with it. That the livelihoods of hundreds of thousands of Canadians in every corner of this country the future opportunities for Canadian prosperity, the stability of the Canadian economy overall, and the unity of our country is not a thing that should be bartered for support of the throne speech. And the Prime Minister himself, on election night, said all these kind words about how he understands and how they want to do better. And his ministers came out saying they wanted to listen. So this is, from our perspective, the point. If there is a real understanding of the crisis in the energy sector and the ramifications for every single sector in Canada, for every community in every province of the country, then this is not a thing that should be a tool in a negotiation for a throne speech. And what it does is it really makes the point that the Prime Minister doesn't mean a single word he says when it comes to fixing the crisis in the energy sector, because it wasn't pronounced on in the throne speech. And I'm just saying the question should be asked if such a deal was done, since the Bloc leader himself said that their support of the throne speech is based on no mention in the throne speech of oil and gas.
But the speech,
That's our point. That's our point.
But the speech
Well, the
does
Liberals are saying
mention.
it's not.
But the speech does mention. I don't have the wording in
Natural
front of me.
resources.
Yeah,
But
one
it
sentence
does-
on natural
it
resources.
does-
Expansion.
It does mention that they will support expansion to new markets of natural resources. So it's not like they're, because you're saying this speech leads you to believe that all their nice words are not actually backed by action, or that Mr. Trudeau doesn't
Sure.
actually. But they do say that in the throne speech, that it will support projects to get natural resources to new markets. So is that not?
So yeah, I thank you. I appreciate the question. I love the opportunity to answer that question. The throne speech is 3,000 words long. It took 20 minutes to read it. The energy sector is the #1 private sector investor in the Canadian economy. It's Canada's biggest export. It literally underpins the economy of our entire country and every single community. I would submit that out of 3,000 words in a throne speech, one sentence on natural resources is appallingly insufficient, and shows that those are just empty words, just like they have actually been saying for the previous 4 years, that they supported market access for oil and gas and they supported energy workers, and then they promptly killed 3 potential pipelines that were available. They haven't made real progress on the Trans Mountain expansion, which, by the way, was supposed to be operating this year. If the private sector had been able to build it, if they had only provided legal and political certainty for it. A couple of months ago, they didn't bother to show up in federal court to defend their own approval. So now the court challenges will go forward on TMX. They have no concrete plan about what they will do this time to ensure that construction can go ahead. So I guess, yeah, thank you. I appreciate exactly your point. It is all just words, isn't it? It's all just words.
That wasn't my point, though.
Sorry, in response to your question. Okay, thank you. Oh, I'm reacting to the Bloc leader's admission on oil, and just urging that people ask the question about whether or not the Prime Minister was willing to cede the energy industry and the livelihoods of the hundreds of thousands of people who count on it for the Bloc support of their throne speech. That's exactly
À la première occasion où le Bloc québécois a la possibilité de se distinguer, où le Bloc québécois a la possibilité de porter la voix de l'Assemblée nationale telle qu'ils l'ont dit, voilà que les 7 demandes du gouvernement du Québec ne sont pas incluses dans le discours du trône, qu'ils vont appuyer et qu'ils sont fiers d'appuyer. Alors, on leur met leur vérité dans la face. Merci.